I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our annual meeting, so we will begin. First of all, greetings to everybody. Thank you for coming out in this weather. I know we have people who did not make it. Yeah. How's that? Or should I come sit on your lap so you can hear it, Lucia? Okay. Thank you for coming out in this weather. I know there's a lot of people who didn't make it, and I'm glad if they don't feel that they were safe that they didn't get out on the road. It would have been nice to have them, but we want everybody to be safe. I'd like to recognize a couple of people before we get into our minutes, etc. First person I'd like to recognize is Bob Bishop. Bob, if you'd stand. Bob has been tremendous in helping us out over the past few years. I don't know if you remember when we had our herd come. The cow and the horses, etc. Bob was very gracious. The horses arrived before they were supposed to. Norm and I were out of town and didn't have a crew ready, and Bob kept the horses for over the weekend. And so probably he thought he had seen enough of us, and then we came up with gas pumps. So he provided the equipment to get those on the trailer so we could get them to the village. In addition, he has been very instrumental in providing a tractor for the Heritage Festival so that they could handle things, and so over the years he's been a tremendous asset to us, and we truly appreciate you, Bob. Can we give him a hand? Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Mike Mistrovich, who is a member of the City Council. Mayor Pro Tem, correct? And he has survived the whatever was going through the city offices, I take it, because we have a few people who would have normally been here, but who ended up ill, so could not be here. So we appreciate your company and the presence of your wife. Next order of business is the approval of the 2024 minutes. They are in your packet. If you want to take a quick look at them, we will then take a vote.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as published.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The minutes are approved. We will start into the reports, and this is going to be a little different here. Christine Rowley will be doing the foundation report.
Thank you, Diane. Hey, it's good to be back up here at the podium. Ken Simmons couldn't be here tonight, so I am representing the foundation. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the foundation board members who are here tonight, and that would be Sarah Foster is a secretary-treasurer. Sarah's here. Director Denny Bolin is here, and Director Patrick McClellan is here. Patrick, and I am a director as well. The duty, of course, of the foundation is to manage and support the finances of RAGS. If you turn to the page in your packet, All the information is there. I'm just going to make this very brief. I just would like to note there are 3 items there. The Donnelly Family Fund, that is funded by the Donnelly family. This year they donated $1,000 plus money for the cedar shake roof and repair on the farmall tractor. So you see the balance in the Donnelly Family Fund, $117. The Rags Foundation Fund, this is what we we continue with. The Rags Foundation Fund paid to Rags, paid for the school and the barn cedar shake roof maintenance, $3,000 plus money. You see the balance there is 93 plus. The bottom, the Freestar Financial account is our checking account. The balance in that is $182. So, do you have any questions on anything for the foundation? Don't ask me anything specific about investments. You could ask me, but I will pass it along to Ken. That's his forte, not mine. But if you have any questions, I'll take them now. Are there any questions for the foundation or the foundation board? We have members here. We can talk to you about that. Okay. That's it for me.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you hear well enough now? Okay. I'd like to follow through with the theme that you have on the tables, and that is our members are the heart of Rags. You people who are sitting here are the heart of Rags. You're what makes us go, and we love all of you for that. Chris Nolan put together the table decorations and the theme. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it. And if you note on this, there are flowers, our beautiful flowers on the front of the annual meeting cover. And there's a reason for that. At this time, I'd like to recognize Marcia Phillips, who has been our gardener for a good 10 years, I would say. She has spent endless hours in the gardens with the help of her crew, Penny and Charlotte Pierzynski and Chris Hench. But Marcia has been the heart of the gardens. She is the one who built them to what they are. She is the one who knows about flowers. But she has retired, a well-deserved retirement, and needs to take care of herself. So Marcia, if you'd like to come up here, I have a little something for you. And one of the things that has gotten us a lot of attention, of course, is our gardens. People may not know anything about the buildings, but man, they know those gardens are there. So thank you, Marcia. You've been wonderful. Don't make me cry. And she will continue to help us out as she can and provide advice. So, we hope to still see her around. And we know her phone number if we have a problem. Our year and the year to come are going to be covered through our presenters. In lieu of how the weather is and so on, I am not going to read you the president's report or go through things that you're going to hear anyway. I do need to do the treasurer's report. Bob Colhagen was unable to be here tonight. So in your packet is the financial report for the society. And basically what you have is where we were at the start of the year, or at the end of 23. The year-to-date expenses the year-to-date income, and where we are now. We're divided up basically into 3 areas. We have a building fund. As you know, we're going to be working on the Ag Museum. We have a general checking account, which is where we do our daily bills, etc. And we have a savings account, which is a money market account, and that is our rainy day fund. Because we do not have a source of income that we know exactly what we're going to get in a year, we depend on donations, we need to have a cushion. And the cushion we have worked with the CPA to make sure we're kind of in line with where we need to be, and according to them, we are where we should be. If anybody has any questions, we certainly will answer them. We are there on Thursdays. If people have questions or they want to come in and see anything on the books, they are welcome to do that. Is there anything I can answer for you now? Or? Okay, sounds great. I think I've covered basically the things I want to say, so I am going to turn this over to Mary Ellen Shepherd Logan, who is membership chairman.
This will be the briefest few minutes that you will hear me tonight, because my other ones are a little bit longer than this, so I know that gets everyone excited. I would like to let you know that we have 6 new members this past year, and we have a couple of those new members with us this evening. Clarice Bruder and her husband are here. And also is Joe Zinni. Is he here this evening? There he is, right there. Hi, Joe. And Joe's one of our new members. Also, Mike Smith is here, and you're going to hear a little bit more about Mike later today. Mike? Our charter members here this evening are Ursula. We all know Ursula, right? Sue Jakubiak. Is Sue here? I didn't think I saw Sue. Don and Donna Cockrell are not here. And Rusty Stover is here. Rusty? He's right there in case you didn't see that big wave. I would also like to thank all the members who volunteer throughout the year and help on all of the events and all of the things that we do throughout the year in the village, the Christmas program, the Heritage Festival, and being docents in the building. So everyone who was a member and a volunteer in any way last year, any even little way, raise your hand, because we have a lot of volunteers in here. And this is what keeps us going, all of you. So I want to thank all of you for all of that time and help you give, and I look forward to seeing all of you again in the coming year. And welcome new members.
Okay, next up is our nominating committee chairman, who is Doug Logan, and he will conduct the election for both the foundation and the society.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yeah, I was on the committee with Doug Porat, who's here this evening, and Mary Gislander, who I've not seen. At any rate, here's our slate for this year. For President, Diane Gibson. Vice President is Don Graham. Secretary is Chris Nolan. And Treasurer is Michael Smith. And at this time, I'd like Mike to stand up and tell us a bit about himself. Very good.
So I'm originally from Fort Yard, my family has been in the area, oh gosh, 5 generations, 6 generations. I've got great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents buried at the end of the cemetery. So we've been around the area for a long time. excited to take part, with Rags and be treasurer. I have a farm bureau office here in town for insurance, and I used to be a funeral director, so I'm very interested in history. I sold my funeral home before the so I'm an insurance agent, so ask me later and I'll tell you the whole story behind that. That's me in a nutshell. My lovely wife Donna will be tonight too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any nominations from the floor? Okay, no nominations, and the slate is accepted by acclamation. Now we're on to, let's see, the foundation, and for president we have Ken Simmons, secretary Sarah Foster, and board Dr. Patrick McClellan. Do we have any nominations from the floor? Well then, again, the slate is accepted by acclamation. We now have our 2025 boards. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we have long-term preservation. That's Rich Weiner. I'd like to thank Rich for heading up this committee. These are I guess it's all guys, who are responsible for looking at what we need to do long-term, taking care of repairs and that kind of thing. They do a heck of a lot of work, and they're very appreciated.
Thank you. Hi. Just want to remind all the guys there's going to be a wiener roast on the day of the tea, and there's going to be a Hollywood related star giving a presentation. So we'd love you to come, bring a dish to pass, and hope to see you there. Tell a lot of stories, some of them are true. I'd like to thank the LPP committee, Norm Gibson, Tom Habel, Doug Logan, Bob Cohagen, and Gordon Mackley for being on our committee this year. And do a quick highlight of what we've done this year. In January and February, we worked on the filling station. Supreme Electric installed some more powerful outlets on the barn and the filling station so we can plug in food trucks and RVs and things that have higher power needs. The couple of us built a workbench for the filling station and a partition wall in the office so we have more room to display items in the filling station. In April, the cedar shake roofs on the school, the barn, and the log cabin were treated with a fungicide and an oil to preserve them longer. Also in April, 3 new reproduction pumps were installed in front of the filling station. There were various folks who donated money towards those, which we really appreciated because they really are special. In May, we installed 4 solar power security cameras around the village, just so in case something might happen, we have a chance to perhaps stop the vandals or whatever. But with the valuable pumps out front of the filling station, we thought that would be a nice addition. In October, our volunteers, Norm, Doug Logan, Don Graham, Mike Buckert, Rusty Stover, me, and Joe Zinni treated the logs in the Donny log cabin with log oil. It took us a couple of Saturday mornings, a couple dozen donuts, and 10 gallons of log oil. Our last project in October was to replace the window well on the north side of the museum to stop the water from getting into the basement because there's valuable stuff down there. And the plans for the year ahead include moving and kind of refabricating a storage shed that the city has made available to us or granted to us that is behind the commercial house. That house behind there has been purchased by the city and is going to be demolished, but there's a 10-foot by 10-foot storage shed that we could really use to store tents and different things that we have that don't need to be exhibited. So that's an upcoming project. We're looking forward to moving it over to the village. We're going to try and make it look like an old milk house. Also in the future, last year Bob Cohagen introduced the idea of a change to one of the buildings we had proposed to build to an ag museum that would kind of have the look of our Richmond Farmers Elevator. So that was taken back to the city just to inform them our intentions to change the design of that. And they were supportive and are very happy with the work we've done. And I think I'm going to invite Norm up. He can tell you a little bit more about that project. And here's Norm. And we're going to have karaoke after Norm gets done, if anybody wants to sing.
Hello. As Rich was talking about, we were talking about putting up an ag museum. And we already have a collection to go in it. Bob Cohagen, his family, have a number of pieces that predate 1950, and he has the receipts showing that they were purchased in the Richmond area and used by his family on the farms around here. So those will be original pieces that will be going into it. That will I'm not sure, but I think that's going to pretty much, okay, I'm not used to having this thing sticking in my face. Any rate, we're pretty sure that that's going to fill that building up quite a bit. It will free up some space in the barn because we've already got some of his pieces in the barn. Some of the things we're planning in there is to have a video room, if you will, that shows videos of how some of that equipment works and have a research area and so on. It is a major, major project, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we're going to need donations, donations, donations. And you guys have stepped up before, and we're going to ask you to step up again, because it's going to take a lot of money to put that particular building up. So we hope that we can move forward. We're also looking at the possibility of corporate sponsors for that. Moving away from that, the filling station has been very popular, and we're still looking for donations of items for that building. One of the things we want to come up with is signage for the outside of it. Most filling stations not only sold gasoline, but to make their real money, they sold other things like food and tobacco products and so on. And it's sort of interesting to see what happened around Richmond here, in that we started off with filling stations where the general store would put in pumps so they could sell gas, but that would get people in there to use their general store. Then the town moved to service stations, and now we're back to filling stations. We got BP, for example. It's a filling station, but it's also you can go in and buy food and stuff, you know, that kind of thing. But you don't get your car worked on. You don't get a tune-up or anything like that there. So we're looking for various items for that filling station. I've been told to keep this, was that me? Am I getting feedback here? I've been told to keep this short, so I'm done.
He listens well. Next up is information about our historic tea. I'm just going to start out by saying the tea is our major fundraiser, and it has supported the society well for a number of years now. it is what it is because of the people who started it. Casey Weiland, I think, is here. She was one of the originators. Chris Rowley and Suja Kubiak spent many years making it what it is today. I'm going to let Chris Nolan tell you a little bit more about it.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Chris Nolan. I'm the secretary for RAGS. I just want to say how blessed we are to have you here. It's so fun to get together, we plan events, and when you show up and we see you and you're here and we just appreciate your support and all that you do for us. Our members are wonderful. We love you and we're so happy you're here tonight. You know, when we do plan all of these different get-togethers and events, it's very heartwarming when people show up. And the community supports us in many different ways. Our biggest fundraiser is coming up soon, this March. It is Saturday, March 29th, and RAGS is hosting this tea, our beautiful historic tea, at Solitude Links in Kimball, Michigan, which is just a beautiful setting and venue for our tea. Ladies, I would like to encourage you to maybe think about hosting a table at this event. We can use your help. Maybe you might want to partner up with a buddy and sponsor a table. Get some of your lady friends to come along and enjoy a beautiful afternoon together. Laura Battaglini, did I say, is the chairperson for the tea. She's here tonight. If you have questions, feel free to ask her. She's sitting right there. You can also check our website. There's more details there for you. We have flyers in the front if you'd like to pick one up and take it home and check it out. I believe we have tickets for sale tonight as well. So we are ready for you, and hopefully we'd love to see you at that event. Thank you for being here tonight and supporting us at the Richmond Historical Society. We are so grateful you are here, and this was a tricky drive getting here, so we appreciate that even more that you took the time and effort to come. We love you. We love our members. Thank you so much. One more little thing, we are taking donations again for our tea and sponsors as well, so please join us that day. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, and after listening to Chris, I should have had her come up here and give this report. She was part of the committee. Sadly, she resigned. I hope she takes a lot of abuse for that. She has done a lot of work. Marcia Phillips deserves even more abuse. Marcia Phillips, Mary Ellen Shepard, Logan, and Chris Nolan were part of our committee, and they've just gotten so busy with other things that they're stepping aside, hopefully temporarily, but I'll beg for some help to fill their shoes in a little bit. But in 2024, we had another very successful Heritage Festival. We didn't get an accurate count of the people that were there. We know that it was more than 600. We don't think it exceeded 700, but it was very, very well received. We do a fantastic job for children at this event. There were several kids aged 9 to 16 that came up after the event and said this was the most fun thing they had done all year. And so we want to continue that. The event will be held June 28 and 29 of this year. And we're advertising it heavily. We've begun to meet as a committee already. Every year we try to add something new. In 2024, we added a scavenger hunt for the kids to get them into all of the buildings and learn a little bit about the history of the building. We had a string band, the Blue River Band. and very, very talented. They're going to be back again this year. So if you didn't visit us, please do it this year. It's a great time. We still have the tractors, the cars, the trucks. We've got a lot of crafters there. We added a few more vendors. The list goes on and on. And I don't want to, I'm going to, but I hesitate to single anybody else out. But Marcia Phillips worked like a maniac with the kids' work, and together with Penny and Chris Hinch and a few others, just did a fantastic job. And I do want to beg a little bit here at this point. We host, think about that word, 700 people at this event. It takes help. And if you can spare even 1 hour, we would love to have you participate. If you feel like you're not good in front of people, there are other jobs that you can do. We need people to carry water bottles around to the people that are in the buildings. We need errands run. We need advertising done ahead of time. There's fundraising that we need to do. If you're good on the telephone, we would love to talk to you. And so if you are interested in helping, there are several committee members here. I may miss somebody, but Doug Logan is on your right. Penny Yelenich, sort of in the middle. Mike Smith, off to your left. Who am I missing? There's others here, I think. I thought I saw one or two others. But Laura, yes. Heading up the T, but she's also helping us. A huge help last year, the last 2 years, really, with the Heritage Festival. See one of those people or me, and we would love to put you to work. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot. Now, if you're willing to help a lot, we'll take that as well. We'd love that. But so great year, and we're looking forward to 2025. So thank you.
It's time for Displace of Richmond. We have started this a few years ago, having information about local businesses, and this year we're moving up Main Street. Last year we had Jeff Evans of Richmond Meat Packers. This year business we're featuring is next door to the Meat Packers, and it is Shepherd Auto Sales and Service, I believe. Many of you have bought cars from them through the years. There's a very interesting history that goes along with it, so Mary Ellen will be telling you more about it.
I'm going to do the best I can on this because, to be very honest with you, my father and his brother, who started the business in town, really didn't share a lot of their history throughout the years. However, we trapped my father one time on a flight back from Arkansas, and we got a little bit of the history of where they started out and how they ended up here. What is now Shepherd Auto Sales has gone through a few transitions through the years, and you can see on the screen where they started, what they went through, and where they are now. The business actually began in Richmond in 1946, but before we get to that year, I'd like to take you back a little bit because this is the Historic and Genealogical Society. So we're going to do a little bit of genealogy right now. And here's some background on those two Arkansas boys. They were born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, to Minnie and Leonard Shepherd. Minnie was an only child of a very successful lumberman who owned and operated sawmills, general stores, various parcels of land, and also served as a judge. He was very well known in the Pine Bluff area, and Minnie was their only child. Now, Minnie married Leonard Shepherd, and they lived with her parents in a large home in Pine Bluff. In 1914, tragedy struck the family when Minnie's father was thrown from a horse, and he didn't recuperate from that fall and died when he was 60 years old. That left Minnie, her husband Leonard, and Minnie's mother, who was now a widow, to take care of the properties. 3 sons were born between 1914 and 1918, Frank, Sam, and Jim was my father. They had a daughter in 1922. The story goes that anytime Minnie's mother, who was now a widow, would give money and control of the assets to Leonard, and anytime he asked for something, she was gracious enough to give it to him. And he had all kinds of wonderful ideas on what he was going to do with those assets and that money. However, none of those turned out to be very lucrative. And by 1930, all of the money was gone. The properties was gone, and they had $125 left, which they bought 2 mules with. This began a constant moving and relocation of the family, and they lived in 8 different towns in 12 years. One of the moves required Frank and Jim, my father, to ride 2 mules 171 miles to the next location. Now, Uncle Frank always tells the little story about that ride on those mules, that as they were riding the mules, that 171 miles, it was an extremely hot day. And as they were going past a cornfield, the corn on the corn stalks started to pop. And it scared the mules, and they nearly froze to death. That's his joke. In 1931, it marked the last year that the boys attended school. My father was 12 years old at that time, and he never attended school again. By 1934, the first trip was made to Detroit by my grandfather Leonard and Frank. Now, in order to get to Detroit, they had to trade a goat, a hog, and $12 for a 1926 Chevy. And that's how they got to Detroit. My father was 16 years old at the time, and he got a job sawing logs with a 2-man cross saw for 10 cents an hour. He saved every penny that he earned. A year later, true to his father's personality, he didn't last long in Detroit, came back to Arkansas, and with the money that my father had saved during that time, bought 40 acres, and the family moved into a 10-by-10 cabin, where they lived until the property was taken away from them because, again, true to my grandfather's nature, he refused to pay the property taxes, which were $1 a year. So they found themselves homeless again. At this time, Frank is still in Detroit, and he took a job at the Ford Motor Company. When work became slow at Ford, he went to work for the Bordell Paint Company. One day when he was working at the Bordell Paint Company, a black Ford car pulled up with a driver and a passenger. The passenger got out of the car, walked up and said, "I need to see Frank Shepard." Well, that passenger was Henry Ford. So they went and they got Frank Shepard. They brought Frank Shepard out, and Henry Ford told Frank Shepard in no uncertain terms that he was to report back to work at Ford Motor Company because he was the best paint man they ever had. So Frank left Bordell Paint and went back to Ford Motor Company. Now, my father enlisted in the Army in 1941, and he served until 1945. When he was discharged from the service, he found his way to Detroit, where he found a job as an auto sheet metal repair shop. And it was there that he worked for a year, and Frank was still with Ford Motor Company at the Hamtramck plant at that time. Well, after a year, Frank and Jim decided they wanted to go out on their own. And so they saw an ad in the paper, "Property in Richmond, vacant building on lot." They had no idea where Richmond was, but it was a building and it was a vacant lot, so why not? So they bought what was called the salvage company at that time. It was vacant. They had junk cars on the property and a paper baler. They bought the property for $6,000. $1,300 down in a land contract. That was 1946, and that was the building that they bought. That's the paper baler that they used, and they would have in that, it went to another slide already. And they also had a T Model Ford truck, and that's what they hauled the paper with, and also scrap iron. So that was the beginning of the business in 1946 in Richmond. Now, across the street from the dealership was the Webb Restaurant. And Frank and Jim, who were staying at the Richmond Hotel, where so many people stayed when they came to Richmond, found their way to the Webb Restaurant for their meals. And at the Webb Restaurant was Margaret Webb. And Margaret Webb really took a liking to the Shepherd boys, because when they were in there having lunch or dinner, they'd take a coin and toss at her and say, "Hey, Margaret, play something on the jukebox." So she would go over and she'd play some music on the jukebox. And I have no idea why this keeps going ahead, because it's not supposed to right now. It's supposed to wait for me to tell it to do that. It definitely has a mind of its own. I'm going to hit, I don't know what I'm going to hit. I need to hit pause, but it's not going to do that. So it's going ahead. It's not supposed to be doing that. I will keep talking. So here they are, and a year later, they paid off that contract with a 1941 refinished DeSoto Club Coupe in all their savings. Well, hopefully the young one can get this going for me again. At that time, Frank took the pickup truck. He went back to Arkansas to get the rest of the family that was there and bring them back to Michigan. The family at that time was living in a trolley car in Arkansas. Now, it was in the Webb Restaurant that Jim got a fancy to Margaret, and a year later they married in 1947. Actually, it was on July 3rd, and my father thought that was the perfect day to marry because he had the 4th of July off and he could go back to work on the 5th. That's kind of how he thought most of his life. So now we're supposed to be in 1951. And in 1951, they put an addition on the building, started to clean things up, and my father was buying and selling cars and doing repair work and bump and paint work at that time with Frank. In 1953, they were approached to start the Packard dealership, which they did, and they were selling cars without a showroom. And so my father would take cars to various homes throughout the community and adjoining townships and cities to show them the product that he had. This was the first new car Jim ever sold, and that was a Packard. And you can see my parents there next to the Packard. In 1955, we might be working here again. In 1955, Packard was no longer producing cars, and they merged with Studebaker. So then the Shepherds became Studebaker dealers, and they had the Studebaker dealership until 1966, when the last Studebaker was produced. The Packards were no longer being built, and then you know what came after that? Along came the Edsel. How many of you remember the Edsel? I certainly do. We had a local dentist in town, Dr. Eberwein, who drove that Edsel he bought, I think, until probably the late 60s and early 70s. Do you remember that? Yeah. Everybody remembers Doc Eberwein with his Edsel. And the Edsel lasted for a while, but then along came Mercury. And in 1957, that's the Edsel that was produced until 58. And then in 1957, they got the Mercury franchise, and there is the Mercury Park Lane. I think you could put half the town of Richmond in that Park Lane at that time. Brother Sam, in 1957, also came on board, and he was the parts manager at that time, which he remained in that position until his retirement in 1986. Studebaker stopped production in 1966. In 1966 was quite a year. That was the year, many of you will remember, that the Corbett bowling alley and bar burned, along with a home next to it, and the barber shop. And at that time, of course, there were many fire engines there and trying to put out those fires. They were not able to save those 3 buildings. My father, Jim, and Uncle Frank were on the roof of the dealership during all of that with hoses splashing down the embers as they came from those burning buildings onto the dealership. Had they not been there, they probably would have lost it. 1966 also marked the first year that my brother worked at the dealership. He was 7 years old at the time, and he was given the job of going out into this area where the buildings burned, and Shepherd's had bought that lot from Corbett's, and he had to pick up all the nails from the lot. He got a penny a nail for doing that. That was the last time he worked at the dealership until he was in high school. 1969 marked the beginning of Shepherd Lincoln Mercury. They took on the Lincoln franchise, and they became dealers for Lincolns and Mercurys at that time. They were very happy with that particular business. It was a wonderful way to meet people. They had a lot of the same families coming in and buying cars, and it was during this time that I worked at the dealership, made a lot of money, hired in at 25 cents an hour, and I believe by the time I graduated from high school, I may have been up to $1. Not sure about that one for sure. There's absolutely true that the Shepherd boys did believe in child labor, as all of the children in the families worked in the dealership at one time or another. Even the nephews got lassoed into doing work there. 1977 already, and that marked the year that my brother moved from washing cars to selling cars and continued that role until his death in 2022. In 1990, there was another expansion to the purchase of the Shepherd franchise, and they purchased the Winkle building that was next to the dealership on Main Street, and that enlarged their car lot once again. From 1985 until 1995, for that 10 years, the Shepherd dealership was only one of 2 dealerships in the nation, nationwide, to have won the prestigious Customer and Chairman's Award for Customer Satisfaction. And it was during that time, after that time, that my father decided he would retire. So he was in the business for nearly 50 years when he retired. And I have to add another little side note here. It was in the restaurant where he met my mother that my mother was working, and she heard many, many times, "Those Shepherd boys won't last a year." So 50 years later, my dad retired. My brother was still working there. In 2010, the Mercurys were no longer produced, and Shepherd Lincoln Mercury just became a Shepherd Lincoln. That marked, and then in 2012, probably was one of the most difficult years for the family and the dealership, because it was at this time that Lincoln moved their headquarters to California. And all the past successes of the Shepherd dealership and the experiences that the Ford Motor Company had with them did not figure in to the new equation that was the brainchild of the young California executives. It seems their focus for Lincoln would be on the top metropolitan markets, and decided Richmond, Michigan was not upscale enough for their product. So Shepherd Lincoln Mercury then went back to the former name of Shepherd Sales and Service. 79 years later now, not lasted more than 1 year, 79 years later, Richmond is still the home and the dream of those 2 Arkansas boys. It's located at the same location, the same address on Grand Trunk Avenue, and continues the tradition of excellence in customer care and satisfaction, serving many of the same families for over 4 generations. We've all been very proud to have lived in Richmond, to have grown up in Richmond. We raised our families in Richmond, and we love Richmond. Thank you. Well, we have our year in review coming up, but I think you probably need just a little bit of break right now before I start on my next spiel. So if you'd like to get yourself a cocktail, take a minute, take a stretch, and then we'll get the end of our program tonight started. Thank you. Already going. This is usually, always, every year, this has been the end of the program. It's a year in review, and it's when we go back and we look at all the wonderful things that have happened with the Historic Society, the events, the programs, the buildings, the cleaning up, and all of that. So here we are, a year in review, 2024. Stories to Tell, Chapter 34. First, we want to give a moment and remember those members that have passed: George Felco, Jenny Foster, Marguerite Little, Max Lenzer, Ron McKernan, and Jean Waterloo. Of course, we have to recognize our past presidents. Without good past presidents, we would not have the foundation that we have and be able to accomplish the things we can still accomplish. George Felco, Lauren Furstenaw, Gil Orris, Christine Raleigh, and John Beard. We thank them for their leadership and their continued support of our society. Now we're off to our 2024 programs and events. And of course, we start each year with our annual dinner, and you'll see there the beautiful table arrangement that Christine Nolan did last year. She did them again this year, and we're so thankful to have that talent with us. And she shares it. 50-50 ticket sales. Tom and Doug handled that, so if you don't have that 50-50 ticket, which I would be surprised if you didn't get nailed by one of them by now, you still have time to purchase those. Our refreshment goddesses last year kept everyone well hydrated, as they are doing again this year, so we thank them for that. And then, of course, we had time to visit with our friends and our family and all the people that come every year to hear the state of our society and foundation. These guys sit at the same table every year, by the way. And once again, we had a wonderful buffet, as we did this year, delicious food. And Diane Gibson, our REGS president, gave the state of the society, and Christine Raleigh, the foundation board member, gave the state of the foundation. Lori Nye, the treasurer at that time, gave the treasury report, and board nominations were given by Doug Logan. Our foundation board was Ken Simmons, Sarah Foster, Pat McClellan, Dennis Bolin, and Christine Rowley. We skipped a slide there, but it's our same officers again this year, with the exception of Mike Smith was elected this year. Bob Colhagen gave us a talk about, as Rich explained to us, the proposed ag building and the need for donations and sponsors, and they're reaching out in all different avenues to try to make that happen. There is a proposed rendition that Bob shared with us last year of what we hope to build and the possibility of what that may look like. A Slice of Richmond last year was presented by Jeff Evans. It was a wonderful sharing of when his family came to Richmond, the meat business that they started, and how that business too is still alive and well in Richmond. I think that speaks volumes for this small town, doesn't it? And the work at the village continued. Starts out with the 10th annual Historic Tea fundraiser. Last year was the 10th year for that, And as Diane had mentioned, it really is one of the most important and the most important fundraiser that we have. It is through the tea that we're able to put on educational programs, build and maintain different buildings and the grounds around our historic village. There you see Christine Rowley and Sue Jakubiak, who are the co-chairs for the historic tea. And Keith Ringert, of course, every year he's been our greeter for the last couple years with the most wonderful smile as he brings in all those lovely ladies to the table. Luke Marion from Michigan Gardener spoke to us about the importance of flowers and plants and how they serve the soils and the systems throughout people's yards. Lauren Ulrich gave us wonderful harp music throughout the afternoon. And of course, we had some beautiful tables. Now, if I were to show you a picture of every single table, you would be here till Monday. So I only have a couple, and they weren't chosen for any other reason than they were the first ones I came to, with the exception of one table. You will see on the left is a beautiful table of butterflies and flowers, and on the right, if you can see that, is a table set up by Sue and Sarah Foster, which emulates a gas station, and there's a close-up of that. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, she chose that particular theme for her table to highlight the fact that we were working on a filling station at the village, and so she created her own here at her table. It was really very lovely. The 9th annual Rags Historic Wiener Roast, as Rich mentioned, also takes place during the tea. And you can see that there's no shortage of food there for the guys. I am sure they slaved for hours getting those dishes set up on that table. Rusty Stover brought in his truck that day. The men enjoyed a feast, and age was of no matter, as you can see there on the right, and I believe, does that little guy belong to you, Rich? So that's a little rich in training, I'm thinking. RAGS President Diane Gibson hosted, along with some RAGS members, the Macomb County Heritage Alliance meeting this year in Richmond. And it was at that meeting that our own Rich Weinert received the Alexander Macomb Award. And I don't think I need to read everything in this program to you, but I do want to share this with you because every word that you're going to hear, I believe, is truly indicative of what Rich does and the man that he is. It is presented to an exemplary individual who has demonstrated a long-term commitment to the culture, education, and preservation of local history and architecture for the pleasure and welfare of the citizens of Macomb County. And that is our Rich Weinert. I would also like to mention that Norman Diane Gibson won that award in 2016. So we have 3 people that are the Richmond Student Council Middle School comes in every year to help us clean up the grounds and prepare the buildings for the school visitations. And we have local 5th grade students that come in and spend a day in the school, and they practice the practices of the school children of the 1950s when they come in. We also give tours to the 1st and 2nd grade students from the local schools, Richmond, St. Augustine, St. Joseph, St. Peter, and they learn about some of the history of Richmond and the importance of the buildings and the preservation of those buildings when they take those tours. They're wonderful days when those children come in, just full of life. The filling station came to life last year, and the wall was built, there were shelves put up, gas pumps were brought in, and there you see Norm making a very important phone call, and guess who answered that phone call? Rich. So I guess, you know, boys and toys, you just can't get away from it, right? The last of the pumps were installed, and then it was time for the dedication. And what a wonderful day it was. How beautiful is that, right? The Regs president, again, Diane Gibson, welcomed the guest, and City Manager John Moore was there to talk about the relationship that the city has with the Historic Society, which is really remarkable. They are very helpful with us. They support us in everything that we do. You'll see Susan Foster there accepting a plaque honoring her late husband and a valued member to our Regs Society who passed away. And this plaque was in honor of David and all of the work that he did in preparation of the filling station and the dedication that day. That plaque can be seen in the filling station when you visit. There is a list of the many donors that made the filling station possible. The list goes on and on. As Norm said, we are still accepting donations to the station. If you have things that you believe would fit in that station, contact Norm. A huge thank you to all the people whose names appear on that plaque. We had a very nice turnout that day. Even some cars. The cars always show up when there's an event at the village now. It's really wonderful to see the cars and the tractors come in. And then more work to be done. Rich already mentioned to you that they did preservation work on the buildings, on the barn, on the cabin, on the school, and you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, even the outhouse roof got preserved. And I'll have to tell you that every child that comes into that village, 2nd through 5th grade, believes that is the most important building in the village. They want to know all about it. They want to know if they can use it. They want to look inside. They want to look outside. So we were sure to get the roof on that preserved also. The Donnelly family visited us again this year, and we really look forward to that family coming in and sharing their memories of being in that cabin and growing up in the area. They have been a wonderful source of history and support for the society for many years now. And then there it is, the Heritage Festival. One of the biggest festivals around, I believe. Our chairperson, Don Graham, has worked endless hours putting that together. It's just a wonderful event. And as he mentioned, there are so many children that come in and enjoy every aspect of what goes on during that weekend. We would like to thank our sponsors who made it possible, and also the donors who helped support that weekend. Without our sponsors and our donors and our workers, none of that would be possible. But we really do have to give applause to Don for all of his hard work. And there's the volunteers for the Heritage Festival. So I know this is a term that's being overused, that it takes a village, but it really does take a village, as you can see with all the names there of the people that helped out that weekend that made it just a fabulous experience for young and old. Tractors, always the tractors come in for the Heritage Festival. And there's Doug Port pulling his little train with the youngsters. He takes them all around the village, in and out of the buildings and up and down the street, and they absolutely love that. Rich Weiner took this wonderful picture from the loft of the barn to overlook the Heritage Festival on that day. We sawed some logs. Metro Parks was there. And then the general store. Now, Don had mentioned Marcia Phillips and the work that she put into that general store. And I have to tell you, it really was the highlight for every child that was there. They played games and they won Regs dollars, and they could take these dollars to the general store and buy trinkets and candy and little goodies, and they just thought that was the most wonderful experience. So, of course, we have to thank Marcia for that and all of her helpers. I know Penny was a huge help that day. Who else was on that committee with Marcia that's here tonight? Penny, raise your hand. because they really made it happen. Now this year in our flower garden, we had a DIA exhibit, a replica of the 1876 rounded flower bed by Claude Monet. And I want you to know that I heard so many comments from people who walked through the gardens that were just excited about seeing that there in our little town. And there you see some of the beautiful flowers that Marcia plants. Now that's Marcia. Now you may not recognize her, but this is about the only way I do recognize her, because she's always bent over planting flowers or pulling weeds and taking care of the village with her crew, Chris Hench, Chris Nolan, Charlotte Brzezinski, and Penny Jelenich. And I want to say that Marcia is retiring. We do know how to get a hold of her. She has not changed her phone number, but we're looking for about 300 people to replace her right now. So anyone who is interested in working in the gardens, help planting or weeding or any of the yard work, let Diane know or myself, and we will put your name down. This does not mean that you have to come every single week and look like that. Just once in a while works. So if you'd like to spend a few hours in the garden and get back to Mother Nature, we would love to have you. It does not have to be every week. You can say, I can come once in the month of April, and we'll take you. We would love to have you. So pass the word along. We had a wonderful group of people from Lawrence Tech come in and tour the village. And then we're in good old days. And there you see Rusty Stover's truck again, representing the Historic Society. And of course, the trucks and cars came into the village that afternoon. And we had a visit by the Good Old Day Queen and Court. And I have to say, I applaud the Good Old Days Committee. They really encouraged their queens to get out and go to all the events throughout Richmond, and they always show up at the Historic Society events. It's just wonderful to have them join us. And then we're on to our Living History Cemetery Walk. Last year was our 7th annual cemetery walk. It was the 7th year that the Rewalt Peschik Funeral Home sponsored us, and we are so thankful for their sponsorship. I ask, and Trent says yes, every single year. There's the whole group of participants this year. We are missing Nick Jelenich in that picture. I don't know if he's shy or if he just hadn't gotten there yet, but he was one of the drivers with the golf cart. And of course, Sandy Lenzer was a guide. She's been a guide for us for 7 years. And this year, Mike Smith joined us, and he actually led the group from check-in to the first stop with Jeff Evans. And during that little walk, he shared his knowledge of cemetery traditions and practices and the importance that those services have for the people who have lost a loved one. It was a wonderful presentation by Mike as he walked those people to the first stop, which was Jeff Evans, the 4th generation of Evanses to be in the meat. I guess he really doesn't work at the meat market, but in the meat business with his family. From there, they went to the Frank Hurt site, and Frank was portrayed by his grandson, Stan, who happened to celebrate his 90th birthday that day. And it was just wonderful having him there. He was going to be here tonight, but I think the weather probably prevented him from coming. And next, we're off to Ed in Wyona, Denton. And Sandy and Dr. Pat McClellan portrayed Ed in Wyona, and Ed was the local pharmacist in town, and Sandy and Pat practiced for days and days and hours, and I have to say, they are still married, even after that. That was Pat's 7th year to be with us, portraying someone in the cemetery walk. And the last one, I don't know who that woman is who thinks she's taking off in flight, but there she is. And I have to say that I really enjoyed researching Dr. Marie Razy, who is responsible for starting the Race with Gables for children who had difficulties adjusting to social life or to the education system. And I want to share one of the quotes that I will always remember from her. Is her belief was that there are no troubled children, there are just children with troubles. Special thanks to Mayor Tim Ricks and Nick Yelenich and Jay Montrose, who loaned their golf carts for us that day so that we could transport people from site to site if they needed that particular help. We also had help from Doug Logan and Rich Weiner, Chris Hench, Mary Gislander, Diane, and Norm Gibson, and I'm sure there are a few people that I missed, so if I missed you and you were there, let me know. I will make an apology. And the work was still going on in the village, preserving the cabin, and Rich touched on that. He told you all about doing that. That took a few days and a lot of manpower. They also worked on the school window well repairs. And we just missed that slide, but the Priestep family joined us for a celebration of Gary's 80th birthday at the Priestep Barn. And a program that we had this year was a Civil War legacy. It was in November. It was a wonderful program attended by many local people. Now, Rich also mentioned that the city of Richmond donated a shed. There you see the shed, and there you see Norm in the shed with mattresses. So I thought to myself, is he no longer welcome on the couch? Oh, he can have a visitor. It's December, and we do our holiday celebration in the village. It's a nice little evening. We coordinate it with the city of Richmond when they do all of their Christmas festivities. And in the school, we have Penny and Laura and Chris Hench, who sat at the snack table when the kiddos came into the school to enjoy snacks, where there was piano playing and sing-alongs. And then they went to the barn where, of course, our own Sandy Lenzer was, again, the most wonderful Mrs. Claus there ever possibly could be anywhere in the entire world. The woman is just remarkable, and children love her. She writes down all the little things they say, and she says she's going to give those to Santa when she sees him that night. It's just lovely. And then we had a reading in the school. Now, this particular reading was quite mesmerizing, as you can see in the next photo. And we had a visit from one of the youngest Weeks family members, and I really want to shout out to Pro Cement, because for 2 years, Pro Cement has donated hats and mittens to the children who came to the village that night. Last year was hats, this year was mittens, and any of those articles that were left were donated to Kids in Distress in St. Clair. So his donation not only helped local children in Richmond, but also in surrounding townships. And that concludes our year in review. Thank you for putting up with me this evening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Safe travels home, and now it's time for the 50-50. Right, Tom?
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you being here. And as Mary Ellen said, drive safely on your way home. We're going to close with benediction again, and appreciate all the support you've all given the RAGS group over the year. And we trust you'll be so inclined in 2025. Let's close with a word of prayer. Father, we do thank you for the blessings of the night. We thank you for all the work that has been done. And what a contribution to this community that all of this is. We thank you for the labor of so many people, the support, financial, physical, time that goes into this. A successful organization. Just reviewing the year has been such an encouragement. And we pray that you would give everyone safety on their way home. We pray that we would be thankful to all those that contributed to the efforts of this society this year. And we ask all of this in his name. Amen. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you again.